as a diabetic, when I explain to people that I have to inject insulin just about every time I eat, sometimes up to 6 or more times a day, I'm often met with a bit of a flinch. Sometimes it's a look of mild horror, but often it's pity. They look almost confused when I explain that the needles don't bother me at all, not one bit. The conversation usually moves on to a different topic at that point. But what I want to explain to these people is that it's not the needles, it's not the injections that wears me down. It's that constant calculation and consideration of each and every dose every time you eat. That's what wears me down. It's that feeling of a hypo, that sledgehammer that knocks you down, or my CGM alarm screaming at me as it goes through the roof, telling me that I've once again got my dose wrong. I've failed to take something into account. The last dose wasn't right, and despite all the excuses in the world, it always comes back to one person. Me. I'm the only person responsible for that dose. And I'm the main person that feels the consequences when it's not right. That's what bothers me about type 1, not the needles. But unless you're type 1, you might find it hard to relate to that. I would say, however, that most people could relate to taking a blood pressure lowering medication or a cholesterol lowering medication. The process is pretty straightforward. You visit your GP, who does a series of tests, takes your blood pressure, takes a full medical history, and determines from the results of these things that you might benefit from taking one of these medications. So he writes your script and you fill it at the pharmacy. 1 tablet, once per day, every day. The dose is the same every day, and if you miss a dose, it's unlikely you'll feel the effects of it. If you forgot you took a dose and take another one, it's also unlikely that you'd run into too much trouble. You visit your GP in a month, they do some more tests and determine whether or not the dose is correct, make some adjustments, and so on and so forth. It's pretty straightforward and most people don't need it explained any further. But what if you had to take your cholesterol lowering medication the same way that type 1 diabetics have to take their insulin? What if you had to take that tablet 6 times a day? What if you had to take that tablet 10 minutes before each time you ate? What if you had to take a different number of tablets based on what you were planning to eat in 10 minutes' time? You'd need to know what you were going to eat, the breakdown of that meal in fats, carbohydrates and proteins, then calculate your dose and have that many tablets. You'd have to make sure you ate on time. You'd have to make sure you didn't get distracted by a screaming baby, a knock at the door, a pot on the stove. Because eating even 30 minutes after you planned means that you will feel the side effects of the medication. And what if the side effects from your cholesterol lowering medication were the same as those that type 1 diabetics experience when they eat just 30 minutes later than planned? Shaking, trembling, hunger, tingling of the lips, dizziness, uncoordination, mood changes, sweating. Wait, I forgot to mention, in this hypothetical situation, you can't just work out what you're going to eat and calculate your dose and take that number of tablets based on that. You have to do a blood test first. And based on the results of that blood test, it might affect the way you calculate your dose for the meal. What if you had a cold and having a cold meant that the calculation you did was different, and so the number of tablets you had to take for that meal were different? What if you'd been exercising? And what if, having been exercising, that meant that you had to use a different formula again? And what if you wanted to have a glass of wine with your meal and that changed the formula? What if having a glass or two of wine with your meal meant that you had to consider that you might need a different dose for that same meal? So if you haven't been scared off taking your cholesterol medication yet, and you've actually gone ahead and taken it, what if you couldn't just relax after that? What if you had to then do a blood test in another 2 hours' time to determine if you got the dose right in the first place? And what if you didn't get it right and you had to take more tablets to adjust it? That's fine. But in 2 hours' time when you want to eat again, you'd have to consider that the dose that you took to adjust the first dose was still in your system and therefore needed to be accounted for in the dose for that meal you're about to take. Don't forget, if you get it wrong, all those side effects we listed earlier. No one would take cholesterol lowering medication if they had to take it like this. The process of testing, calculating, dosing, eating, testing, correcting each and every time you ate, every day, forever. No one would do that. Type 1 diabetics do. That's what we live with. And for me, that's what wears me down, not the needles. If you are type 1 diabetic and you are really struggling, then hang in there. Reach out for help. Talk to people around you. You'll find support. You'll get through it. If you just get fed up with it, like I do, then just tell yourself that you'll be a boss tomorrow. And then focus on something different. Focus on something else, something that you are profoundly grateful for. And if you're not type 1, then I hope I've been able to give you even a sliver of insight into what it's like living with this disease. Thanks for watching Ted's Got Diabetes. If you found this video at all useful, then please share it. If you wanted to just let off some steam, then the comments section is built just for you.